Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Midwest Ag This Week. I'm Stu Ellis. I take care of the farm chores here at Channel 3. On our program today, we'll take you to the sky with ethanol. We'll take you to the nation's capital with soybeans. We'll check in on those elevated market prices, and we'll celebrate a birthday. All of that and what Grandpa left you in the fields, starting right now.
Welcome to Midwest Ag This Week with host Stu Ellis.
Well, the United Airlines 737 took off this week powered by ethanol. A majority of the ethanol from ADM will be converted to sustainable aviation fuel, which is low in carbon content. And University of Illinois ag economist Scott Irwin says that is the future of ethanol as cars and trucks gravitate toward battery power.
I think this is the sweet spot for biofuels. I think because sustainable aviation fuel is a sustainable market. We know that electrical vehicles are going to eventually take over in the surface transportation market in the U.S. It's going to take a lot longer than people think, but it's coming. If we're serious about decarbonizing that part of our transportation sector and we're willing to pay for it, I think that that's a real sweet spot for biofuels advocates.
Well, I saw that the airline that had the demonstration a few days ago signed a contract to purchase 1.7 billion gallons of sustainable aviation fuel, and so that's to me is a major headline right there.
Absolutely, and I think honestly, I think why it's a sweet spot is, maybe, and I'll admit, I am far from an expert on the manufacturing of sustainable aviation fuel, but as an economist, I would think it's probably more expensive than petroleum-based aviation fuel. But I think that the beauty of that, and as a policy, is it's probably a little easier to pass those costs on to airline passengers than it's not as sensitive politically as the cost for a gallon of gasoline. And so I think that it's something that we're going to hear more and more about because it works.
And we'll be finding out what that trade-off is on policy versus price. Well, Kevin Scott had quite a week in Washington. The South Dakota farmer, who is president of the American Soybean Association, in 1 week interacted with 2 branches of government. He was invited to the White House for the signing of that infrastructure bill a couple of weeks ago, then went to Capitol Hill to testify at a hearing of the House Agriculture Committee.
We think that the infrastructure bill is good for us, and we've been pushing for it for many years to improve our infrastructure, and this looks like it'll help.
Talking about roads and bridges and broadband and waterways and all of that.
Yeah, locks and dams, waterways, connectivity in the country with the data that we use in ag country now is incredibly important, and we need spots that are on all the time, and we don't need to drive out of range of a cell tower or those kinds of things, and so rebuilding that infrastructure is great. The infrastructure package we've pushed for 20 years since I've been visiting in D.C., and it just so happened that the administration that's in power right now is the Democrats, and we're for that infrastructure package. So, there are we were against the way they initially were going to try to pay for that through taxation and so forth for farmers. So, but those things were left out, and we feel pretty good.
What was your testimony?
So it was a House Ag Committee on Trade, and so soybeans export 60% of what we produce here in the United States. So trade is critical for us, and I was asked to be a witness there. And we talked about mostly China, because specifically they buy most of our products. 1 in 3 rows of soybeans is exported to China out of the U.S. And so the issues with China, the tariff issues, the non-scientific issues that come up for trade to disrupt trade, all those things were discussed, and trade with other countries. How do we diversify all the eggs in the one basket type of scenario? We need to not have all of our eggs in that China basket. So diversifying trade was critical.
We've got a drought out there.
Yeah.
A snow drought.
Snow, yes. It's going to last for quite a while, we're thinking.
The snow drought is going to last.
It's going to last. It's going to be probably very hard for us to have a white Christmas here across a lot of the Midwest. There's a big system currently moving through the Midwest, and that is providing places like Wisconsin and Minnesota with a lot of snow, but in other parts of the country it's providing severe weather, very strong winds. So this low will be dictating our weather here across the Midwest for the weekend, and along with that is going to come some falling temperatures for our Saturday. So Saturday's high temperatures will be early in the morning, about 1, 2 o'clock or so in the morning. By the afternoon, our temperatures will have fallen into the 30s and 40s, and then we'll be looking at Sunday to be a sunny day with high pressure coming in, but we're looking at temperatures that are down into the 40s. But in terms of the rainfall amounts that we're going to see for the week, most of it's going to come from that system. So most of this rain will have fallen between Friday night going into our Saturday, probably late afternoon, when everything should be wrapped up precipitation-wise. Now, our long-term forecast for precipitation takes us all the way to Christmas Eve Day, December 24th, likely trending a little bit warmer or a little bit wetter than normal during this time, which will be good for some locations, but in many spots in the west they are still battling with that extreme drought conditions over there. But a lot of moisture has worked its way over the state of California, especially over the Central Valley, and is providing some of the mountains with the beneficial snow that they need for their drought situation over there. In central Illinois, as well as a lot of the Midwest, we're looking at a little bit wetter conditions to kind of just keep everything where it is as of right now. But our temperatures will be quite mild for the rest of the week. Most of us should be in the 50s and even 60s for our highs, when we normally should be in the low 40s. So we're going to be spending a lot of time above average. And our 8 to 14 day outlook, which again goes until December 24th, is also trending warmer than normal too. So Stu, we're talking about that drought for the snowfall. It's definitely going to be sticking around here, we're thinking, until probably the end of the month. That being said, there's some indication that January and February might be a lot different. No more 60s during those months.
And a lot of farmers are looking for snow in the higher elevations of the Rockies because that melts coming down the Missouri River and keeps the Mississippi high enough for barges next spring. That's important.
Yep, and they've got that over there, which is good.
Celebrate a birthday in a moment.
Welcome back to Midwest Ag This Week.
Well, happy anniversary. This is a special anniversary year for a program that has put injured farmers back into tractor seats and combine cabs across the country. But it's a lot more than just letting them get back to work, says University of Illinois safety specialist Dr. Josie Ridolfi.
So National Agribility is celebrating their 30th year of existence. So for 30 years, the National Agribility program has been supporting state programs so that we can provide critical services and education for farmers in our area who are experiencing age or disease or injury-related disability. So when people are injured in agriculture and they're unable to work, it really impacts their identity. It often impacts their quality of life and their mental health. So what we're able to do is to make sure that farmers in Illinois who are experiencing disability are able to remain on the farm, maintain some independence, quality of life, and mental health.
The first client was R.D. Elder of rural Blue Mound.
When I was first injured, there was no agribility. It was mostly peer sharing between farmers you would hear about that were disabled, and we would exchange ideas. Where agribility then becomes an organization that gathers all the ideas into one location and one resource for people that are injured, and they're able to advise you on things that are available to make your life easier. When I decided to get a manufactured lift as opposed to my homemade lifts, the program manager at the time and I developed a plan that we took to the vocational rehabilitation in Illinois, and My first lift we were able to get funded through Department of Rehab, Illinois. And I'm not stopping at the lift because as I age, I'll need more resources. Back when I built my own lifts and everything, I was young and tough. And now things, when you're getting older, you need a little more help, need a little more adaptation. So I'll continue to utilize them for resources to adapt.
Let me ask you a question. How much of your old crop and your new crop have you sold? Noted market advisor Richard Brock of the Brock Report says we're seeing historically high prices for corn and beans, but he says farmers are not taking advantage of them.
We have rarely, I don't think we've ever averaged $5 for corn for a whole year. On an annual, but have not averaged $5. And here we're looking at $5.65, $5.70 right now for new crop corn, and that much or more for old crop corn. You know, I think, you know, we haven't been aggressive sellers. We're 10% sold in new crop and 60 to 70 on old crop. But these price levels, I think, you know, it's the old bird in the hand's better than two in the bush. I think from a farm management point of view, people need to be selling corn and beans at these levels. Some, not all. I mean, but I think you got to put some money in the bank here at these basis levels. Once we get past January, I think the basis will start to soften, and so these are some opportunities. I think people say, okay, let's sell 10% and hope we're wrong, or 20% type attitude. But with that said, I'll say soybeans have never peaked in the month of December since 1970, never. And corn has only peaked in December one time. And so, you know, odds are it'll be higher sometime next year.
That's right. Some farmers may be thinking, well, China hasn't been buying yet. They're going to come in the market, and then suddenly the market's going to go up because of Chinese demand. But I'm not sure that Chinese demand is there.
I'm not sure it's coming back, and I think, you know, we all have to be careful when things look so good. Where's the black swan going to be? And, you know, what if all these threats that this administration is making against China now, what if they counter that and say, you know what, we don't really need your corn and beans? But the reality is they do. I mean, the nice thing about being a farmer and producing corn and beans, people have to eat, and pigs need to eat. And so we have a demand change. Most times when people say, well, we're not going to buy as much, it's a threat. I mean, the reality is they need our grain. Now, grain production in China is going up, but it's not going up enough to offset their needs.
Matt Bennett's with us. Matt, good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good to see you, Stu.
But Brock had some pretty good points there, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think I could disagree with him a whole lot on much of anything he said.
We had a crop report, well, a supply-demand report of sorts here this week, but it didn't say a whole lot.
No, I mean, carryouts didn't change for corn or beans. Actually, you saw the wheat carry get boosted marginally because of lower exports. But, you know, a lot of folks were expecting maybe corn ethanol grind to go up. But the bottom line right now is that December is typically a very blasé, quiet report. You're going to see a lot of different things going on in the January report. You could certainly see production changed, but I do think you're going to see demand addressed as well. And the way things look right now with basis levels, how they are across the country, there's no question that demand's very strong. You know, and I think there's a lot of angst about 22 right now, not only from the input cost side of things, but input availability.
That's right. And so, and the traders knew that the report wasn't going to say a whole lot anyway. So a lot of them have kind of started an early Christmas time. We might see some slow trading, but we need to watch out during the next several weeks.
Anytime you've got slow trading or lower, I wouldn't say slow trading, but lower volumes do, a lot of times you can see very drastic moves. And so you got to be a little bit cautious as to make assumptions that none of that could happen. Now, these markets to me look like they're in some sort of a sideways chop type mode. But at the same time, I would agree with what Brock said in that you got to at least protect yourself against the black swan that none of us are expecting right now, especially when we've got historic profit margins that we can lock in already.
Okay. Anything driving the market this next week of any sorts?
South American weather is going to be very closely watched. If southern Brazil and Argentina stay dry, you can assure yourself that the bean market's at least going to stay well supported, and corn to an extent. But we're going to be watching very closely to see how that plays out.
All right, Matt, we wish you a happy holiday if we don't see you before Christmas. And thanks again for today, and we'll see you in a few weeks.
Absolutely, Bud. Good seeing you.
Thank you. Matt Bennett of agmarket.net with us today. And we'll be back in a moment. Take a look at, well, some interesting things. Stay with us. We've got quite a show. Well, if yours is like mine, the corner of every shop is a great place to prop up pipes, some long-handled tools, pry bars, T-posts, and anything that needs to stand up off the floor. But sorting through them can sometimes be frustrating and finger-mashing. In our Shop Talk today, we'll look at a bad example and then an idea for mobilizing important tools, mobilizing them to the forefront.
You have pipes and long-handled tools hidden in a corner of your shop?
Now, where's that axe? Doggone it. Back here. Where'd this thing come from? I haven't seen that for years. Where is that axe? Oh, here it is. All right. Finally.
For a better idea, we call Blake Nolan at Nolan Farms at Blue Mound.
Today's Shop Talk, we're covering what do you do with all those pry bars, sledgehammers, and high lift jacks that you need to know where they're at when you need them, but the rest of the time you just need them out of the way. So we asked our master fabricator, Tracy, to put together a way that we could organize all of our high lift jacks and pry bars. Our bar cart consists of the inside spacer of a John Deere tractor rim that was cracked, that was in our scrap pile. So what we've done is weld in a plate on the inside portion, and then on top of that plate and the rim welded different size pipes. That way you can slide in the different pry bars that you need, and that way it can hold it in a way that you can see where they're at, know exactly what we have. And our issue was we were stacking majority of our pry bars and sledgehammers in the corner of the shop, and then you try to get the one you need, you had to pull all of them out just to find the one you wanted. Now the downside with that is you make it to what you're working on in the shop and you realize you need something bigger. So the idea of putting the heavy duty casters on there allows us to roll it to the piece of equipment we're working on, and then when we're done with it, roll it back into the corner. You can see it's nothing too terribly special. It uses a lot of different scrap pieces that we had on hand. But the idea is it gives us the ability to have a little more organization. And if someone new starts or we have a high schooler helping on the farm, they know exactly where to go to find exactly what we need. The bar cart, brought to you by master fabricator Tracy for Nolan Farms.
Coming up, a legacy that Grandpa left you that you may not know about. Your family legacy may be a farm, but you also have a substantial amount of legacy phosphorus. Phosphate applied in years ago, never fully used by crops. You can either use the 200 to 800 pounds per acre, depending on your farm, or it'll flow away in a field tile or erode along stream banks with penalty from the nutrient loss reduction standards, according to University of Illinois soil scientist Andrew Margonaut.
We might be losing phosphorus from fields that was put down, in some cases, many, many decades ago. And so the legacy phosphorus, that name imparts the fact that phosphorus that was from a past application is going to stick around. The reason why this matters for things like NLRS is that we want to make sure that we don't incorrectly attribute P losses to current application rates. They may have been from past application rates. The second reason why this matters is that we can lose phosphorus by erosion. In fact, most of our P losses in our state are derived from soil losses. And so if we've also banked up phosphorus in the soil, then soil erosion and its mitigation by conservation practices becomes even more important to meet the NLRS targets. our soils in this state are blessed with a lot of natural capital. They naturally have a lot of phosphorus from after the glaciation. And the idea of the subsoil concept is that you can draw on that a little bit more in times that you might want to scale back on inputs. But of course, we have soil tests to guide this safely. You don't want to miss out on a profitability gain. So it's hard to give a blanket response, sorry, but I would give you my favorite answer of it depends, but it depends most on your soil test spray value. There's a lot of room in that soil test where you're above the critical value and you're in the maintenance rate range, and so you might be able to afford holding back on a very pricey year if you're going to maintain yourself above that critical value.
How would someone know how much legacy phosphorus he has?
Well, I would say researchers also don't know quite so well what is down there. And to clarify, we don't even know where Legacy P is with respect to the vertical distribution. So there's definitely a lot of subsoil phosphorus. This is from the loess that was blown in after the glaciers millennia ago. And that is definitely appreciable. We're talking from 200 to 400 ppm, so up to 800 pounds per acre every 6 inches if you get into the subsoil in the high end, or 200, so 400 pounds per acre. But related to that would be how much P has been banked up as Legacy P. And it's likely to be in the surface, foot or so, but we don't really have good numbers on where that Legacy P has ended up.
Well, that concludes this edition of Midwest Ag This Week. I hope you've benefited from some of the information you heard, and you'll share it with your farming colleagues. On behalf of our staff here, thanks for joining us. I'm Stu Ellis.